Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning or good evening to everybody else, and to the audience. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the first ever virtual Prime Global Forum and this very special Eastern Hemisphere session. As you all would know, the Prime, which is Principles of Responsible Management Education, it is a United Nations supported initiative founded in 2007. And it is a platform to raise the profile of sustainability in schools, particularly around the world, and to equip today's business students, particularly with the understanding and ability to deliver change tomorrow. So I attended the UN Global Compact Leaders Summit just before this. And as we already know, where sustainability and the SDG agenda is concerned, we are not on track, especially in terms of extreme poverty, gender gap, climate change, inequality, and of course the recent events of, the other types of inequality, including widespread racism. And today with COVID-19 pandemic, this is certainly proven to be challenging times, but as they say, and Professor Matty reiterated just now, hard times are moments of reflection. So perhaps this is an opportunity for us to rethink, reset, reboot, as they say. And maybe it's a chance for us to get things right. So I would like to thank this distinguished panel for taking the time out to have this very important conversation today. And thank you to the audience for tuning in. If you have any questions to the audience, please feel free to include them in the chat and I will post them to the panel if we have time. So to start it off, may I ask Rashvin Singh, who is the CEO of Biji-Biji initiative. Could you just introduce yourself and your experience in dealing with sustainability and ethics?
I'm Rashvin and glad to be here. Thank you very much, Priya, for the very kind introductions. So I'll just share a little bit on what we do. So Biji-Biji Initiative is a social enterprise that is a group of social enterprises that works with sustainability work. We also have a subsidiary called Moderator, which works as a creative education startup. We work on a platform that connects underutilized machines with resources and experts, and we also run a series of maker spaces or creative hubs in Malaysia, one at our own space, one more with another university. So through our journey with, as a social enterprise who's also a part of the UN Global Compact, we work with multiple different corporate clients and on multiple different projects, and actually we've had the chance to work with a huge number of young people. Each year, we take in about close to 80 to 90 interns across so our entire team is about 25 to 30 people full-time. We take about 90 interns over the year at different batches, different cohorts, and we've developed a few programs for them. So would you like me to expand on the work we do, or?
In a while, because I have questions that are related
to
the work.
So yes, that's what we do, and there's the programs we do with our client partners, and there's a whole talent development program we have created so that the youth who join us are able to support us and our different partners in achieving our sustainability mission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rashvin. Mr. Kamal Singh, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience with UNGC and sustainability and ethics?
Okay, so national management education, education at every level. That was a for the future trends, best practices as far as management education. And until many years ago, that we were the pioneers of the distance learning educations for MBA graduates. Spent a great deal of time over there, learned a lot, and then I moved to the national body of resource management professional, and being member of this body. Some of the innovative work the companies are giving the relevance of management education with the industry, because the HR were the customer to buy whatever the services from side. That as a life and society as a whole, this opportunity, UN Global Compact job has itself redefined me and how society has to work in tandem, or the business has to work in tandem with the basic good, doing good, and also contributing good. So this to connect with the we found that I would have not got a better job than this job. My own upbringing and my work and experience has always been based on ethics only. So it gave me more competitive advantage in making sure that all of our member companies, all our stakeholders do engage on the subject of ethics very, very clearly, and then bring that ethics separate in their own businesses and in their own working. And I personally believe that the value that persons should have is all about being ethical, being responsible, and being disciplined about everything that we do in our life. So the Global Compact fortunately has this mandate, and when I came in, there was not much of PRME in India. So I did recognize that Prime is one major game changer if we have to bring the sustainability to the fore of our business. And so how do we connect the business schools? So we have then started our membership drive, and today there are more than 8-9 UN champion business school and more than 125 schools have already engaged with us as members. And I see a lot of good possibilities making a huge change here, because it is the business budding managers that they will be the future managers, and they will have to also realize the want of whatever today we are not following in making sustainability our game. Good.
Hi, Kamal. You're breaking up and the line doesn't seem to be stable.
Okay.
I hope you come back soon. Yeah, but it's breaking up. So maybe you just can try and stabilize the connection in some way. But yeah, please come back soon. So thank you for the introduction. And so I have specific questions that I want to ask, and maybe we can start with that. Let's come back to the present, and before we dive into anything else, can I ask you, Rashvin, how has COVID-19 and the current racial tensions affected or changed your industry and the work that you're doing with your social enterprise?
Okay. I guess it's been a huge impact. That is the reality of it. And I think the impact has been in two parts. Of course, the first big part is how we work internally and how we work with our clients, our partners. So in terms of program delivery, in terms of the ability to work with communities on the ground, that has changed tremendously. Their needs have changed quite a lot. And our ability to be as quick as possible to understand and to grasp that has been crucial. So it has changed quite a bit in the way we do the work, how we reach our partners, how we deliver the education programs. That's one. The second impact has, of course, been on how, because of the cash flow impact, there's also a business economic impact. It's changed quite a lot how we utilize resources. And honestly, I think collaborative approaches has been given a steroid injection. Right, we've honestly gone deep into like looking at where do we really need to deploy resources, where can we work with partners on the ground. Because of the movement control restrictions, we had to work with different partners who were in different localities, but it turned out to be way more effective and way more, although Malaysia is a small country relatively, but still traveling interstate was a problem. So we had to get partners who were on the ground to represent us, to run some of the classes, to go down and to be able to connect with the community. So we've basically formed very good partnerships and collaborations due to COVID that I'm really happy that it will continue. With regards to the larger Black Lives Matters movement, I'm so happy to hear that, to be alive during this time, to witness what could be a momentous change in the way institutions, in the way structural racism is addressed. It has not changed us so much because we have always, from the very beginning, been all about inclusive education opportunities. I think if anything, it's just made us much more assured, really happy to have these topics. We've pride on diversity quite a lot. So it's just really refreshing to have this conversation right now. And I think it's very validating for especially impact enterprises, because you're kind of like, yes, finally, everyone's on the same page. And, you've got this, further drive and motivation to do what you do. It's very, very validated. Yes.
Yeah, I feel that this lockdown has brought people, has resulted in people internalizing a lot of these issues and bringing mindfulness and awareness to what's really going on in the world. And I think that has, to me, more than fear, that has been the driving change of you, for example, how you have, to me, it was like, wow, the world's at a standstill. I am finally, we need to reflect and do things the way sustainability has never been so important as it is at this time. And I'm sure you guys as well would have thought, yes, finally, this is the right way to do things. And this seems to be the catalyst for
Yes, it is definitely
change.
A good catalyst. I am quite mindful and fearful of sustainability moving down, the environment sustainability moving down the pecking order, because human life and economic recovery always precedes these conversations. But I'm really happy to just read yesterday that the UN and WHO were emphasizing that the reason why we had the COVID outbreak was because of our disregard for environmental balance and wildlife protection. So I just hope that you're right. You're spot on to say that it's brought a major spotlight and not a temporary spotlight. It's a thing that everybody experienced together, felt together. But I think our decisions over the next few months, how we choose the path to recovery, is super crucial. And that's where a place, Prime, is destined to shape this discourse. Academia is where knowledge is created and formed that will chart the path. So I'm really happy about this.
Yeah, great. Because even the keynote speaker just now, when he spoke about fear and muscle memory, I feel that this is going to be a battle between muscle memory and a deeper awareness or mindfulness in the way we do things. And I really hope that Prime takes us to, another level of how we should approach education. Kamal, are you with us? we seem to have experienced a problem here.
Generally talk quite a lot, so if you need me to talk for the next half an hour, no, I'm just kidding.
Can you tell us about the work that you do? Tell us about the work that you do.
Okay, I think if I can bring this back to the skills conversation, I mean, I'm just filling in. Okay, Mr. Kamal is here. Fantastic. Yeah.
Hi, Kamal. Glad to have you back. You're breaking up. I can't hear you. Did you mute yourself?
I'm not muted.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question I had was, how has COVID-19 and the current racial tensions affected or changed the industry and the way UN Global Compact does its own work?
Yes, so the COVID-19 has definitely challenged the way that we used to work earlier, and it has also given us new ways of rediscovering not only ourselves as an individual, but also as organizations. And large number of organizations have now realized how technology can play a huge game changer in their own way of doing business. So when COVID-19 situation came, a lot of companies by force realized that there is no other way, but business has to carry on. Can we get onto the technologies? Most of the companies who were as it is on technological platform, but they were not using the technology the way we have now started doing it. So it's a very big paradigm shift. Now people have also realized and you can bring technology in delivering your solution education to large extent. So our management education.
Okay, lost him. Have you lost him? Yeah,
Not at all.
yeah, he's gone. Okay.
No worries, he'll be back. He'll be back soon.
Yeah, we'll just wait for him to come back on. So moving on with the conversation, I have another question from based on what we just spoke about. So based on the challenges and the changes that you have experienced, from COVID-19 and the racial tensions and all that in the work that you do, what skills do you see potential employees or fresh graduates would need in this current climate or the future?
Yep. What's interesting is that I think the 21st century skills framework, the 4Cs, has never been more relevant, right? So creativity, critical thinking, comms, and collaboration has been even more rooted. But in particular, though, like what I think we are currently, what we needed really badly, and what I was really happy that our team was able to embody, and what we need going forward, is honestly the ability for young graduates, young skills, to be agile in how they deploy their skills, right? So you want to build the skill sets that you get through university, through your internships, through your experiences. But what I need is, what we would like to see is your agility in being able to deploy that. And what I mean is how you can use your skill sets differently across different situations. Now, why do I say this, right? On one side, everyone talks about the new normal. Everyone feels that it's okay, we know it's going to change, it's more digital workforce, it's the isolation economy. Maybe I'm the few people who feel like this, but I have to be honest to say that I don't think many employers, many companies are also absolutely certain what the changes are going to be to their industries, right? We've had some initial, we know some of the larger trends, like I mentioned earlier, but how each business will be impacted is quite hard to say. For example, now we're slowly coming out of the healthcare crisis, but then we're going to have the economic recession coming in, and then how are certain industries like aviation or events going to change? So as an employer and a leader in my organization, I've been quite honest with my team to say that, look, I can reasonably predict some of the changes, but there's a lot that we don't know, right? And what I need from you is the trust and the agility that when something needs to happen, I need you to be able to deploy your skills differently. So for example, when we were responding to the PPE, there was a need for us to convert our education center to make into a production center, to make the face shields and to make the gowns. Teams that were using their skill set with project management and internal project management had to be converted into external partners managing that. Our internal comms team that were building simple websites had to change their skill sets to service external partners, to build a platform to connect different things. So what I was really happy that our team was able to use their existing skill sets, but deploy it differently, because it's quite hard to say what the demands of the business will be like.
So do you think this would cause someone to look into a more interdisciplinary approach to their knowledge seeking rather than a very specialized one? Because agility would require you to be able to adapt to other areas of what may be required.
Yeah, so it's spot on that you say that, interdisciplinary skills, right? Which I think comes down to the value of learning to learn. Yeah, and I think that is such a crucial thing. It's easily said. I'm relearning all my digital skill sets, like to be more effective working remotely. So yes, I think that is the crucial thing. And I think being strategic also to know that some things that you might not be able to learn so quickly is who can you work with and how can you find that skill set. So if I could say, it's agility, multidisciplinary, and proactiveness. These three things has never been more valuable for us.
And proactive.
Because it's really, you need people to be aware of what is the current, it's changing so quickly, right?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Rashvin. Hi, Kamal, are we back? Are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay. The question I had for Rashvin, was based on the challenges today. What skills do you see potential employees or fresh graduates needing in this current climate and the near future? Rashvin has narrowed it down to 3. He says agility, multidisciplinary, and proactive qualities are very important. So what is your take on what potential future fresh graduates might need in this time?
Yes, so while some of the skills that people were needing and industry were needing, like passion to win, creativity and innovation, flexibility, efficiency, quality, executions, power of communication, cross-cultural skills, or even managing the business ethically. But most important skill that I feel now that will be very, very important for budding managers or entrepreneur would be managing in the era of uncertain times. This will be a reality because today it is COVID-19, tomorrow it could be something else. So the manager will have to learn how to respond to unknown situation, unknown circumstances that they need to be very, very mindful of. And at the same time, they have to also should have, as Rashvin mentioned about the agility, ability to agile, and it's a very good skill that the future managers will have to embrace going forward. And I also see in the whole process, the more and more future managers will have to embrace how to be socially responsible, how to be socially doing their own job in a manner contribute our. So that kind of appreciation these future managers and the entrepreneur will have to learn and keep in in the mind that no longer it is not the situation where they can do with all these skills that I just read about it, but important is that the society sustainability of the business of the society as a whole is very, very important going forward. It is not a buzzword now, it is a real necessity now.
Societal impact on community and a purposeful business, I would think is what you're driving at, Kamal, and I think it ties in very well with the social responsibility and appreciation for having that impact on society, on environment, on the climate, and it ties in pretty well with the skills that you've mentioned, Rashvin, with agility and being proactive, and this being able to adapt. Thank you for those insightful comments, and building on these skills that you have mentioned, that what potential employees and graduates might need. How would this translate into responsible and sustainable education in your sector and in your particular region? Do you think business schools are doing enough? Do you have specific ideas or opinions on what higher education should focus on to inculcate the skills that you just mentioned? So how does it translate into responsible education or management education in business schools?
Yes, so let me say with the very good news that our government of India had a new education policy that was being debated over a many number of years, and now the new education policy draft has come in, and the draft itself is advocating the need to introduce the subject of sustainable development goals and sustainability as a subject right from schools to higher education to vocational to technical solutions. So while many of the academic institutions, those who have been very visionary, have been more pioneering, they have anyway introduced the subject much before this policy document has come in. So once this new education policy comes into implementation after signing getting the approval of the Parliament of India, so then everywhere it will be a subject to be taught. And going forward, I see it is a very good step, and I personally believe that will make all our youngsters realize that how sustainability or SDG for that matter are very, very key imperative going forward. And secondly, in India, there are number of good institutions, and they have anyway this subject of sustainability, social responsibility, or even for that matter of even SDG after 2015, they have voluntarily introduced this subject. But with this law coming now, there will be no other option but to understand and get it taught, and also made our future managers fully aware about this subject of being socially responsible. So I see a great future, particularly when this is coming by law, and this is coming by our own lawmakers here in India. The Parliament and the ministers themselves are advocating it, and they also realize that more sooner we do, better it is for us. So that is a good news for us.
I think, Kamal, that's fantastic, because at the moment, I mean, especially with Prime, I think the focus is on higher education. And the fact that the government of India is re-looking at their education policy to bring in sustainability from the basics of education, from primary to secondary, right up to higher education, is a very much more impactful strategy than trying to introduce it to them in higher education. I think the foundation is built there, and I think it's just a visionary education policy that India is looking into. I wish you all the best, and I hope it translates. Yeah, I hope it translates very soon into the education curriculum of and you would be an example for the whole world to follow. Actually, Rashvin, what do you think?
One more thing I want to, Priya, if you can permit me, we know the COVID-19 situation. We as UN Global Compact India, along with UNESCO, have conceived a competition for academic institution on situation of COVID-19. How campuses or business school or academic institution have learned few things, and how they have been able to, in their own way, brought that implementation in a manner where they feel that it is a good practice. So this competition, along with UNESCO, we are launching it, and we will see how the COVID-19 situation, how these academic institutions would have addressed, and if there is some good practice, if it is coming through a method of good practice or competition that we are launching, we will share those good practices with other business school, with other academic institutions. How these are some of the leading schools. They have introduced something around this, and they responded to COVID-19 better than anybody. So can we share and learn from those practices? The other academic institutions also will learn of this. So this is going to be launched together with UNESCO very soon.
That's great, Kamal. The best practices, I think, in this time is very important. And there are a lot of institutions doing good stuff and being very innovative at this time. So I think, to have resources and sharing of best practices is really good. What do you think, Rashvin, in the context of Malaysia, like we see what India has done, in the context of Malaysia, what do you think responsible or sustainable education, how important is it in this region? And do you think business schools are doing enough? Do you have any ideas on how it should change to inculcate these skills that we have that we want in fresh graduates?
Okay, so I'll share from the perspective of the view that we have, right? And so being an organization that gets the chance to do a lot of talks at universities, I get to engage a lot of students, and through the 90 different interns that we get here on a yearly basis, we get close to 800 applicants a year, Priya, and you'd be surprised. So in the applications, we ask them which sustainable development goals do they think that they would like to work on if they join Biji-Biji. And it is shocking the amount of students who do not know what the SDGs are about, right? And this was also validated when we do talks at universities. I often talk about the work we do, and I ask them, so have you guys heard of the SDGs? And I get this cute, meager, like half hands, like I kind of heard of it, right? So it was quite shocking with that. And I'll tell you why it's super important, right? So for example, in the work that we do, working with partners. So for example, we're now working with one of Malaysia's largest property developers, and they have taken sustainability as something they really want to anchor on their development part. Now, we just had a call last week, and they were just, so it started off with a conversation about they want to put in place a recycling program for their residents. It's a new township, and they want to put that in. And so that was a great idea. But instead of just looking at that one goal, what the team did was we basically had a really good conversation with the client to understand, okay, look, recycling is important, sure, but could we look at this from a more holistic perspective? So we referred back to the SDGs, and we said, okay, if we're just going to look at goal 12, responsible consumption, that's good, but you might only be treating a symptom, right? Could we treat this program as a more holistic one? Could we talk about recycling in totality? So look at also food waste and solid waste. Could we now evolve the conversation a bit further? Could we also look at the different circular solutions you could put in place? Is there a car sharing tool that the community could use? Is there a bike sharing tool the community could use? And then we evolved it further to say like, hey, if we're just going to talk about recycling and sustainability and all, why don't we anchor this with a future careers agenda, goal 8, right? Which is on quality, decent work, so goal 4, quality education, and goal 8 on decent work and growth. So being able to tie these different parts, we were able to now create a much more holistic program that we all personally feel will get the community to not just look at the recycling aspect, they actually get to appreciate the totality of it. And then I think you bring about real behavior change. So why the SDGs are so important is that it teaches you how to ask the right questions. It teaches you what matters, and it teaches you, or you have awareness of where this direction should go. So to do this, I mean, I probably won't comment so much on how our private education or higher education is doing it at the moment. But realizing this importance, Priya, what we did was we basically had to launch our own program. So we launched our own, realizing that we needed the skill set so badly. We launched our own Changemaker Talent Development Program, right? So all the interns who join us now, they go through this program. And as a result, within the first 2 weeks, they need to understand the different SDGs that are available. And they didn't understand the different social enterprise models or social innovation models that are out there. And then throughout that program, they will then pick an impact area that they want to work on, a personal project per se, and then there's a whole tracking mechanism. So we've given the empowerment, so we give them the knowledge, and then through their internship over here, they've got their tasks to do and all that for sure, but we also give them the student-led approach to see what areas they want to implement with the SDGs and social innovation. And we've seen a much, much higher participation rate in terms of their learning logs, in terms of their reflective journey, and it's so far been really good. And I think pairing real-world projects with students is probably something we could do more.
See, this is where the gap is, I feel, that you shouldn't be running programs to teach them. That should have been done in the institutions, right? So this is where I think it's really good for universities and those involved in SDG teaching to work with enterprises like you and to design, like what you just say, your learning log, your reflective practices, and
applying the social innovation into it. So like if I want to apply goal 12, which innovation model am I using? Am I using a sharing economy model? Am I using a cross-subsidy model, right? And that gets them to think about the tough questions, but the fun ones as well. Like,
okay. Yeah. So building on that, to bridge this gap, when I was at the Prime Forum just yesterday, one of the points that I picked up was this: that collaboration and partnerships between businesses and business schools should be there should be more participation by practitioners from the industries and students to be included in research and education of business schools. And not just in terms of guest lectures or students serving as research assistants at a superficial level, but for them to be involved in proper research and learning projects like you've just mentioned, and perhaps even encourage publication by them around the projects that they've done. What do you think? And how do you think this can be achieved? And I think this is where the collaboration bridges the gap. The corporates, the social enterprise, the projects that is being done, and including students and practitioners instead of just keeping it at a superficial level.
Priya, that's probably the best question to ask, right? It is a spot-on question. And so I think you're right. We have, universities have recognized this. They've done it in the form of adjunct lecturers. They've done it in the form of career talks, industry talks, right? And maybe some mentorships. But okay, so to make it more meaningful, right? Like how to make this partnership, like you said, not superficial, something that's intertwined, interlocked, and creates mutual value. So coming again from the perspective that I have as people who run social enterprises and organizations, the first challenge I think universities need to tackle is a lot of organizations see this partnership as something which is time consuming, something that is distracting from their regular piece of work, and they think that this doesn't add value, right? So a lot of my friends and I who run organizations, I'm like, hey, look, are you working with any universities? They're like, oh no, man, like it's a waste of it doesn't work. Like it takes up our time. But I think what we're not answering here is that there is a fantastic amount of resources at universities that SMEs and entrepreneurs and corporates can tap into. For example, access to tools and machinery, right? You have access to all these 3D printing labs, all these innovation labs, the Bloomberg data sets, right? All these things you've got. I've seen your research center at Monash where you understand like behavioral research, where do people look at? So first things first, I think is organizations are unaware of the value that universities can bring them. And especially in current times, universities are also able to provide organizations with what I call agile workforce, right? So now if I want to dabble into maybe VR content, right? It's a bit of a risk to engage someone first. Maybe if I could partner with this as a final year project with a student group, that lowers my cost of research, my cost of innovation, and it's a real world context for the student group through a final year project. And then that will set the path. Maybe then I'm like, you know what, it worked out really well. Let's do this full time. So I think we need to meet the gaps. Ask why do companies not do this enough and tackle their fears, maybe.
Yeah, and if we don't bridge the gap, I think companies are going to start their own programs, just like
correct.
you've done. So that risk there as well. Another thing that I picked up from yesterday's session was this. I think you'll be able to comment on that. All right, basically it's this, that when you collaborate for sustainability, right, and for it to truly work, it should not just be an emphasis on collaboration and partnerships between business schools and corporate bodies. The collaboration should be three-way, in a sense that there should be collaboration between business schools, corporate bodies, and NGOs, because the idea that was presented was how important it is to include social work in the equation, because one of the main reasons and one of the main ways of learning true value is from of principles of sustainability, or the SDGs or ethics, comes from the social work through NGO. So there should be a partnership with all three components to give value to student learning. What do you think about that?
Oh man, it's super important. I think NGOs and impact partners really bring the value that is needed, and they give context. They give that empathetic context, which is so needed. Yeah. I think Kamal is here also, just by the way.
Hi Kamal, I don't see you. Are you back?
He's looking to get in, but I think you're spot on to say that NGOs have a huge role to play, and they will really benefit from the talent available at universities.
Yeah. And lastly, I mean, like one thing that I also picked up from yesterday's session was the institutional collaboration. And I was hoping Kamal would be able to contribute here, because where Prime is concerned, now the key objective is to work with this, sister initiative, and to collaborate with UNGC for new innovations, initiatives and programs, and to create cohesive regional research centers and collate for best practices data, like he was mentioning before. These regional hubs are important in the sense of engagement with students, mentorship, best practices. So how important do you think this collaboration with UNGC is? You were previously with UNGC, right?
Yes. So I was part of the UNGC leadership team for a little bit, and still play a role. And I think you're right. Like UNGC is your first entry point to the corporate world, right? Because these are corporates and SMEs that are already switched on. They appreciate the value. And sometimes I think they need that push or that guidance from the talent side, right? Because they want to make their shift, but they're probably unaware. And I think Prime can fulfill the talent gap that the UNGC typically will need, UNGC members will need. Yep.
Okay. Well, I received a message that we'll be wrapping up here in the next few minutes and heading back to the stage. Kamal, I can't see you anywhere.
Yeah, I think we got to add him on. Let's see if there's a way to...
No, because I need to add him on, but I don't see him at all. Let me see. Maybe refresh.
And I think UNGC also gives you a really good global perspective, because you've got Unilever, you've got all these big organizations over there, right, that are also charting the way forward for how the biggest companies need to change. And I think Prime fits in quite well exactly within that.
Okay. I don't see him. Do you?
No, I don't, but I think we will have to, embody Mr. Kamal's spirit over here.
Spirit, yes. Yes, we'll embody Mr. Kamal's spirit, and it was a very interesting conversation. And Kamal, hi Kamal, you're back. I'm so happy. No, okay. I have one last question, which I've asked Rashvin. What I picked up from yesterday during the Prime forum was that how important collaboration with our sister initiative is, and how important it is to collaborate with UNGC on initiatives and programs. So the collaboration between Prime, business schools, and UNGC. How important is this, do you think?
Yeah, so I definitely see a huge the requirement of collaboration between two organs, and especially the UNGC bring businesses together, and also Prime brings together the business schools together. So we have to converge together and create an agenda which is mutually beneficial both to business school as well as to the corporate sector in India. And we have already started working towards this. We have already constituted a steering group, which will get into the details of finalizing that what kind of activities the UNGC should conduct with Prime in India, because Prime office is also in UNGC office in New Delhi only. So we have thought of engaging business school more than before for different kind of programs and services that we'll offer to business school. And one of the challenge for us will be to introduce the subject of the sustainability or including SDG in the curriculum of every business school that teaches and prepare the managers for future. So there is a huge need, and we will have to work in tandem, because ultimately the future managers, the budding entrepreneurs, will have to embrace sustainability, or for that matter SDG, as their game changer solutions for the future. If they are able to bring that thought right from school level, I'm sure when they go to their own businesses, they will succeed much better than what it is now.
Thank you, Kamal. I have just one more question that I have to ask you. Something that yesterday was also mentioned was this, that there is this premise that sustainability and purpose-driven businesses is already the drive of the top 100 companies worldwide. And achieving this to have more impact in the future, there's this idea that for real impact to take place around the world, focus the next decade of action should penetrate beyond the top 100 companies and reach further and further beyond the top 100 companies which are not practicing sustainability yet. So instead of focusing on the top 100 companies that are already doing a good job for a bigger impact on humanity and the way business is done around the world, do you think UNGC plays an important role in trying to reach companies that are not part of the top 100 to engage in sustainability and who hasn't done much or know much?
Yeah, so I fully agree with you, and we also have started our focused campaign to bring them into our fold. While there are roughly 50 organizations who are top 50 of India, they are anyway part of UNGC, but there are another 50 are still yet to engage with us. So in our future focus, we will be bringing them on our platform so that we are able to maximize the impact. Because the idea of these top 100 will be to maximize the impact and bring them into the belief that yes, SDGs are the ultimate answer for not only sustainability of ourselves, but planet as a whole.
Great. I mean, that's really great because I think it should go beyond the top 100, and the sustainability is a problem of the entire humanity, not just a few companies. So I think it's very commendable what India is doing, and we have a lot to learn from you. And on that note, I've also been given notice that we're supposed to move to the stage. Although we don't have many panel speakers here, I think this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you, Kamal, so much. Thank you, Rashvin, for your contribution. I think it has given us a lot to reflect on how to bridge the gap, UNGC, the entire partnership. So it's been really great, and it's been a pleasure hosting you. So I think we'll adjourn to the stage now. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you, Priya. Thank you, Rashvin. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yes, take care.
Rashvin, thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.